starburst pattern, like a spider web. It doesn't just make a perfectly round hole without cracking the rest of the window. Not only that, the windows were like double paned, and only the outside has a hole, and the inside is still intact.
I don't get that. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, it's pretty strange, and I don't think a glass cutter could even do that under the best circumstances. How do you make score a perfectly round hole? And you start noticing missing buildings. Like you thought it was just 3 buildings. No, it's 7 buildings that were destroyed that day.
I didn't know that. I don't think a lot of people knew that.
Right. There's 4 skyscrapers. The Marriott is 22 stories tall. It almost completely went away, except for one stub at one end. It's like 2 stories tall and just about as wide. And there were people that survived it. The people that were in that little corner survived, and there weren't remains of the other ones found. It's like the building just went away completely. If something landed on it, when you have something collapsed above it, crushed. And Building 4 is another bizarre one. That was on the southeast corner, adjacent to Tower 2. The main body of it completely went away, to the point you could almost sweep it up with a broom.
When did you first find out about these other buildings? I never even heard about these other buildings.
From looking at all the photographic evidence. I don't listen to what other people say. I look at the images and what do I see? And so I started looking and having more questions. The north wing of Building 4 is still there, as though somebody cut it off with an X-Acto knife. You could look in and see what's on somebody's desk inside. It sort of reminds me of when I was a child. We went through Toledo, Topeka, Kansas, right after they had that humongous tornado go through there, and it cut an apartment building right in half. And you could see somebody's made bed in there, and their dresser, and some books on the dresser. What I saw in Building 4 looked just like that. That it was just like something sliced the building. It wasn't anything halfway, crumbled and rubble in front of the doorway. Mm-hmm. Like somebody sliced the building. And then you look at Building 5, and it's got cylindrical cutouts in it, like somebody took a post hole digger. And Building 6 really has a bunch of them. About 50% of the mass of the building is gone, down to the ground. It's just like somebody took a post hole digger and cut it all out. They look like cylindrical cutouts that are about 24 feet in diameter. And there was a survivor standing, a firefighter who was standing in the lobby of this 8-story building, right next to the center with his buddies. And then everything went black. And when things cleared, he looked up at the blue sky. He was on the first floor.
Wow.
And he knew his buddies were gone. I don't know what would have happened if he'd reached out and held on to one. But it was just down to ground level, not below ground.
Could we say, as you're describing what you're describing, is that a form of being vaporized or something?
I wouldn't say vaporized.
Okay.
This guy would have been cooked. Vaporization implies heat. And one thing I'll warn you about my language, if I don't know what a mechanism is, if I don't know what a phenomenon is, I use a generic word, simple word. I could say phenomenon number 287-3A. But that's too hard to remember. So I give it another name, like, okay, I don't know what happened to the building, but it turned to dust, so I use the word dustification.
Okay, I got it. Now, I do want to talk about Building 7, if you want to say anything about that. I'm sure there's plenty to say, but that's another one.
Building 7.
What the heck happened to that building?
It seems like it was set up as a sort of a false choice, either the official story or bombs in the building, where neither one apply, because there's no detectable seismic signal associated with that building going away. I won't say collapse, because it doesn't match that phenomenon either. The building went away, and video cameras a block or two north of there were carrying on conversations. You could hear the conversations, and you heard nothing of the building in the background. Whisper quiet. And it should sound like it was raining dump trucks. Each floor, it's a 47-story building, and each floor is the size of a football field. And, thousands of dump trucks crashing down. you hear a dump truck rumbling down the street at night. It'll wake you up. So imagine a whole bunch of them being dropped. The ground should shake. But it didn't even, hardly register on the Richter scale. Most of the seismic stations could not detect it from background noise.
They talked about, I can't remember the guy's name, I think it was Larry Silverstein, told someone in the fire department to pull it. I mean, I've seen that. So I don't know if that was deliberately pulled, but even if it was pulled, are you saying that the phenomenon of how the building left is an anomaly?
Oh, yes. It's nothing we've ever seen before. It has for the Silverstein pull-it comment that a lot of people like to quote. And they say, well, it was blown up with dynamite. I laugh and say, do firefighters go around with sticks of dynamite in their back pocket just in case? Fire departments also don't destroy buildings. So why would you tell the fire chief to blow up the building? It makes no sense.
What is an anomaly?
Out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Something unusual. And that whole site is just that. So, the two towers go away. I like how you say they left. Yeah. I don't say collapse. They did not collapse.
Didn't they turn to dust? It was like a plume. It was the most bizarre thing. That's what freaked everybody out. Everything was pulverized. What the heck? What do you think it was?
Like the top of Tower 2, when it started to tip over, it turned to dust before anything hit the ground. It was just poof, mid-flight pulverization. In order to pulverize something, you have to slam it against something else. Like that, controlled demolitions, that's what they do. They cut out the bottom supports and slam the building to the ground. So you get a big earthquake kind of signal. Well, I started looking into more things, and actually it was that tipping top of the South Tower where I got one of my major aha moments. That, you think of water turning to steam. The water molecules need 1,600 times as much volume to, when they turn to steam. That's how you get steam explosions, the sudden expansion. And so I'm thinking of that, and I'm looking at these buildings. I wonder if solids can do something like that. And then thinking, okay, molecules and atoms are attracted to each other. Is it possible to flip the switch and get them to repel each other? That's kind of what it looked like. And I started looking into things, and I come upon the Casimir force, which is very small scale attractive forces. And if you could somehow reverse that, and sure enough, there was some evidence of that. There's a new article that had come out. But then I came upon the website of John Hutchison, and I was looking at his blog, and I saw these photos. He had something about the Casimir forces. And his photos looked like the World Trade Center on a smaller scale. He had replicated every single one of the phenomena that I had tabulated.
What are we really talking about then?
Some kind of energy phenomenon.
Are you talking about scalar energy?
I don't ever name it because that again, it forces you into the corner of picking. When I was looking at this stuff, I didn't know there was such a thing as directed energy weapons.
Oh, definitely.
I had no idea, but the evidence told me there was. Another phenomenon that was interesting is right after the North Tower went poof, the dust cloud rolls out, there's a photo about a block upwind looking west, and you see a clear blue sky. And then you notice around the feet of the firefighters is this fine stuff, I call it fuzz balls, fluffy stuff popping up. And then pretty soon, 20 minutes later, you notice it's rising all by itself. Well, if that was so fine, how did it settle out of the air? The only conclusion I could come up with is that it's coarse dust that lands and then becomes fine dust.
Kind of like a nano thing?
Well, it's that the particles are continuing to break down. So as it flies through the air, it's like all the molecules are separating from each other and keep breaking down. And the size particles actually that were measured were finer than anything anyone had ever seen at any kind of pollution, air pollution of like oil fires in Kuwait or anything that's been studied. by far.